Hey, everybody. Welcome to an all-new episode of House Calls, the podcast. Tonight, Ty and I are talking to my friend and soon-to-be Ty's friend, Sheehan Burch. Sheehan Burch, as you may or may not know, is a color analyst for women's lacrosse games, and she also does sideline reporting for Navy football. The women's Final Four is coming up this weekend, and I think it's a great time to catch up with Sheehan and hear her thoughts about the sport and her story and her love of the game.
So I'm really excited for this episode because I'm a big fan of lacrosse, and both on the women's side and the men's side. I think it's really cool how the sports are the same but so different. Actually spent a lot of time coaching girls lacrosse, coaching my daughter, so I'm excited about that. We were chit-chatting before you and I got on and started this intro, and I do want to observe that you're a little tense because of you having a procedure tomorrow. And I just want to give you some of the pre-procedure advice.
Please.
First of all, you're not allowed to eat or drink after midnight. Okay. Number two, nobody wants to hear about the podcast in the pre-op area.
Okay.
Number three, there's a lot of patients getting ready to go when you have pretty quick procedures. So the patient next to you does not need to hear stories about me when I was 17. Okay. I'm going to be cool guy, Dr. House. I'm not going to be podcaster Ty House tomorrow. So I'm going to be focused. So I want you to be focused. If I'm going to be a good surgeon, I want you to be a good patient. So now I want you to take a deep breath and just relax, and we'll enjoy this podcast.
Well, I mean, Sheehan's a professional.
Hey, we're professionals. We're on episode 25. Yeah. And if you do a good job, I think we can get you a job maybe.
Ooh, hey, it'd be kind of weird if I asked her. Could you ask her?
I'll ask her.
All right, you ask her. All right. Well, yeah, good luck tomorrow. I want you to go to bed right now.
So I will be in bed by 9 o'clock reading, lights out at 9:45.
All right. Well, I hope you're reading.
Because I got to read about how to do a carpal tunnel.
That's what I was afraid of. Yeah. Well, you can YouTube it. All right. Okay. Here's Sheehan.
So, yeah.
See it. All right, everybody, welcome to a whole new edition of House Calls, the podcast. Ty and I, as you can tell, again, faces made for radio, but we are blessed to have someone good looking for a change. Sheehan Burch is with us, and Sheehan's a longtime friend, but you might know her from her lacrosse career, as well as being a color commentator for women's lacrosse, as well as doing sideline reporting of Navy football. So Sheehan, thanks for making the time to sit down and talk to Ty and I.
I'm thrilled to be with you guys.
We'll see. Thrilled is a loose word.
So can I state that one of my major goals during this podcast, I don't want to just get to know all about Sheehan, but I'm really going to try not to interrupt you more than 7 times.
7. All right. So we got 1. So, all right. So I'm going to take the over on that. He's always interrupted me my whole life. He's bigger. He's older. So I have to let him do it.
Stronger, faster.
Anyhow, Sheehan and I work out together, Ty. So, you couldn't hang with us.
Okay.
So Sheehan Stanwick Burch, member of the very famous Stanwick family, the oldest child. And so you're the oldest, and you've got, 27 siblings? Wait, walk me through the numbers.
Yeah, close. 7 younger siblings.
Okay.
And we're no twins, all about 2 years apart. Sister Wick, sister Coco, brother Tad, your neighbor brother Steele, Wells is a boy, Covey, a girl, and then the last one is baby Shaq, who's the tallest of the bunch.
True. And just so everyone knows, they are not in the religious order. They are not nuns. She kept calling them Sister Coco and Brother Steele. They are not in any religious order. And they also played lacrosse, I understand. I'm not sure. I haven't heard.
They all have played lacrosse, not in a religious order. My mom was always asked, is she Catholic or just stupid? And she never knew whether to be really offended by either one of those answers. So everyone played lacrosse. Everyone played at the D1 level, and had a lot of success, and it was a lot of fun cheering them on, being the oldest.
Right.
So before we get too much into lacrosse,
there's
talk about her babysitting career with 7 younger kids. I mean, what was the age difference? How old were you when the youngest was born?
I was 15 when the youngest was born. And I have to say, we definitely helped out a lot, but my parents did not have a hugely active social life. And I never felt that it was a burden on me. However, I think the next couple sisters down, still being the oldest, I think I had some of the focus was on me and a bit of the only child. But I think if you ask my third sister, Coco, she had a lot of the babysitting duty. So Now I help more with the my nieces and nephews. So I think it's payback time now.
And there's 7 siblings. Is there a middle child to have middle child syndrome?
we call a couple of them middle child. They all seem to think that they're the Cinderella of the family.
Okay,
so
I'm going to let Matt talk now.
Okay, that'd be great, Ty. Thanks. Sheehan, back to your family. I'm not even going to try to make you name all of your nieces and nephews. There's like 73 of those. But I did a quick poll, and a lot of people. It's interesting talking to people who like Ty. Ty does follow lacrosse a lot closer than I do, but I talk to a lot of people, and they say that you were of the family, you were the best lacrosse player. But then I poll your family, and they say Tad was the best lacrosse player. Comment?
Well, Tad was very good. I am an easy answer, and it's definitely a lie. So they are all, it's totally not the truth. There's basically no video footage of me ever playing, and no one else can get mad at them. I felt like everyone got better after me. So it was
Tad
not
was
me,
the
but
best.
Tad would definitely tell you. I think you probably only talk to Tad because he would definitely vote for himself.
No, I had a number of people. Told me that. So
how did you first get into lacrosse? Since you're the oldest, were your parents into it, or how did you get exposed to it?
So my grandfather on my dad's side actually played lacrosse and apparently wrote the first book on the 10-man game of men's lacrosse. So we have a copy of that. It was not on any bestseller list, but he was an avid fan and had a love for the game. But my parents did not grow up in DC. Lacrosse really wasn't around there. I think my dad had a wooden stick that was more like a relic in the house that he had played around with, but didn't play until we moved to Baltimore when I was 6 years old, and actually met Matt's family, and his little sister became one of my first best friends. And we got into lacrosse then. I think my dad literally needed to help my mom out in terms of occupying the kids on the weekend, and he saw everyone walking around with lacrosse sticks. So that was our weekend activity of he would take 1, 2, or 3 of the kids at a time and just kind of go play lacrosse together. And so started basically just from, if I never moved to Baltimore, I probably would have never started playing the game.
So you were friends with Emily at a young age, and you weren't freaked out that she slept with her eyes open?
I was freaked out that Matt was her older brother.
Yes.
Still are. Oh. Be honest, you still are freaked out by that. And Ty, one of the times that Sheehan came down to visit Emily in the summer, she hadn't been on the grounds for 5 minutes. And this might have been a pivotal moment in her life, actually. She walked up behind Emily when Emily was in camp, and Emily didn't know she was there. It swung back, and Emily nailed her in the head with a golf club as she was playing golf. And next thing you know, Sheehan is on her way to get stitches. And after that, Sheehan said no golf and just concentrated on lacrosse. So by moving to Baltimore and Emily clubbing her in the head, that's how we got where we are today. Pretty fascinating. So Sheehan, you, again, oldest, you get going in lacrosse. Did you play other sports?
I played a little bit of soccer and basketball, and then ran cross country in high school, but really did not excel at anything except for lacrosse.
I don't know. You're very humble, very.
And this was before club teams were big.
Yes.
So it was more rec league straight to your high school team.
Yeah, it was so different, just a different landscape. And now I have 4 kids. So not only have I seen how my siblings' journey went with lacrosse and how that dramatically changed from me to the youngest, but now just watching my kids grow up through everything. And it's a completely different landscape. It was all school rec. You were recruited basically out of your high school, which isn't necessarily the main way that it is done now. And then there was one big kind of summer tournament and then summer camps. And now it's a completely different landscape.
You were in it. Now you're seeing it as a parent. Which one do you think works best, right? Do you think you would have enjoyed the single focus of having to play one sport year round?
I am glad I was able to play other sports. And we still did have a lot of the outside leagues, like a winter league and indoor the summer league, but it was more fun and not a lot of more skill development. So I do miss that the camps that used to be kind of the school camps that you would go and not only visit and learn about the campus, but also work with some of the players. I think that's a great way to get recruited, to be recruited and to see schools, and they would have a bunch of coaches there. Now it's just a different world. And I don't know if we're still kind of in the beginning process of it. So I don't know if we're doing it right as parents, but it's a lot of just kind of playing. And I don't know, I think there could be more emphasis on the improving part of it. So probably a blend in between the two would be a happy medium. But
you say you're in the beginning of it, but you've already, of your 4 kids, you got one of them already signed for college. So
not when it's done and signed and everything in the door and buttoned up.
No, so did you encourage your kids to play multiple sports?
Yes. So we've always liked them just kind of keeping busy, getting off the screen. So they all play multiple sports, and it is hard in high school, I think, to play 3 sports. And it was difficult also when I was playing a million years ago. So I do like them being busy. My son played football and lacrosse, and then my daughter is a 3-sport athlete. And it does seem that on the girls' side, just the way the schedules line up, that it is a little bit easier to play 3 sports. It's still, extremely draining, but I like them being occupied because it can be just a lot of focus on one sport. Now there's a huge emphasis on strength training and speed training and different things that weren't necessarily as big. So at least that kind of, diversifies things a little bit. But I like them taking a little bit of break from that main sport, even though I feel like constantly you always are working with your club team and there's always things going on.
Yeah. How do you feel about the emphasis on the speed training and the strength training?
I like it, especially for the girls. And, it does seem to be the ACL and all the knee injuries. They're so prevalent. So I'm glad that teams are putting an emphasis on that. And I think that's great. My kids could definitely, speed training is great. And that's a skill that could be definitely developed. They did not get much from me. So I like it. I think it's just a fine balance. With my son, I know he's constantly trying to get bigger, stronger, and just reminding him that it's not all about the numbers and like doing things safely, especially with back injuries and some of the overuse stuff. So I'm glad that they have people watching over them. But again, I feel like it's something also to monitor.
The ACLs in especially women, but really any lacrosse player, but especially women, is a problem. And you hope that some of those ACL prevention programs, which have been proven to work, and adding that with the strength training can hopefully decrease those numbers. So it's kind of like the playing all year round might not be the best thing for injury. Playing multiple sports might help injury, but the strength training, you're like, oh, this is one more thing, but it's actually a good thing to help prevent injury, getting stronger, more flexible, all those things. So it sounds like you're just even overscheduled, but that's a really important component for injury prevention.
Totally. I mean, it's just such an injury. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And so much more about it, but it's just so prevalent. And there just doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason when you see those injuries happen on the field. And it just is heartbreaking. However, the recoveries that I've seen, it's amazing that they, a lot of the players I've seen go back to faster and stronger than they were before and better players. So that is encouraging for the players that are sidelined.
Yeah.
Sheehan, we'll get to your career, but did you ever have any season-ending injuries like that?
Thankfully, no. The worst I had a broken nose, which was from like an errant ball that just kind of hit sideways. And I don't even think the x-ray, my nose was like sideways across my face and gushing blood, but they didn't know it was broken, but I still had to get it. I guess if I was hit front on, you would have seen a broken bone. That was it. But I just had to wear like a Skeletor mask to kind of protect it. And thankfully, no other injury. So I really was blessed.
Ty, comment about broken noses?
I've broken several people's noses all by mistake. And I saw one of them yesterday, a friend of ours named Craig Whiteford, who he broke his nose on my skull sleigh riding. And then I stepped on Matt's brother-in-law's face. And then another time sailing, I kicked a guy in the nose all by mistake. I'm a 3 triple crown broken noser.
Yeah. But what back to Craig Whiteford.
So we're sleigh riding down Suicide Hill on a toboggan.
Yes.
We hit a ramp. I'm in the front and my head snaps. His head snaps. Back of my skull hits his head. All we see is blood on the slope. And he basically covers up right away and says he wants to go home. And we're driving him home. Matt's riding shotgun. Craig's in the back seat like this. And Matt says, hey, we're 17. So first of all, he's like, can we stop at McDonald's? And Craig goes, Matt, my nose is broken. He takes his hands off. His nose is literally to the side of his face. I say, we get it. We're going to take you home. He puts his face back up and Matt just goes, Craig, don't get your nose all bent out of shape. So at 17, Matt always had a good sense of humor. Yeah. Yeah, he looks great. I saw him yesterday. He was at the lacrosse games with us at Navy Stadium. He looked great.
Yeah, back to Sheena's lacrosse. So you didn't have to do the club stuff. You go to Notre Dame and you end up at Georgetown. What was that recruiting process like, different from then versus now? And how did you choose Georgetown?
I still remember being very stressful, which is similar to what I've witnessed with kids nowadays, just what they go through. It was much later. So the summer before your senior year. So everything's kind of been sped up. And the NCAA actually has slowed things down. It used to be you could commit back in like 8th grade, and now it's different than that. So it's a little bit better. But when I was doing it, July 1st, the summer before your senior year, you were able to get phone calls. And I remember that happening right away, which was great. And just being given a lot of great advice, taking notes. And it was just an interesting time because you're learning a lot of these coaches you did get to meet, you've met like along the way, but you didn't really know how to like react to what they were saying or the questions. I didn't really know that much. So I ended up taking a lot of my visits. I went to UVA, Maryland, Georgetown, Loyola, Vanderbilt, Duke, and UNC, some official and some unofficial, just trying to get a good landscape. And I think I was able to commit. You would sign like in mid-November, and I made that decision in early November. So that was and that felt fast. And now it's so much quicker. There's kids that today
now it's late.
Yeah, they commit sometimes on that first phone call. So that I wanted to see everything. I remember with Georgetown, the coach was a woman named Kim Simons, who lives in Baltimore now and is a huge role model to me. And I had been at a camp with her. I thought she played in like the camper all-star game. I thought she played great. She was an All-American at Princeton, and she was like phenomenal. So when she called, she said her story, which was she went to Princeton. She was a 2-sport athlete. They were not in the top 10, but by her senior year, they won a national championship, and she was hoping to do the same thing at Georgetown. That stood out to me along the way, just to be part of something. So in the end, the Georgetown decision, they, weren't in the top 10, but they had some great players and were just kind of like knocking on the door. And I thought, win or lose, there's no guarantee that we're going to win a national championship, but I want to be part of this process. And some of the other schools I was looking at could have, won with or without me.
Sure.
So we went down, visited, had a great visit, and then went to go watch them play, like a practice at 6 a.m. just to get a sense of what everything was like. So I felt like it gave you a lot of time to really feel like you were making the right decision.
Yep.
And that was it. And then, so it was a kind of a quicker process, but by no means comparable to what happened today with some of that landscape.
Right.
It didn't change. Once you decided you were there.
So once you got there, from a lacrosse perspective, was it the kind of similar to it is now, as far as the amount of hours you're putting in, the off-season training, the fall ball, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it was definitely more than what we were doing from like a high school level. So there was always a big jump compared to what these athletes are doing now. That's like insane, the amount of hours that they're putting in, because they've got mental training and the physical and just the recovery and like all different aspects of things that, I never even, and training, the pre-treatment, the after treatment, there's so much that goes on, but it was definitely an increase to what I had been doing in high school. And it was a big jump, even just the level of play, just the physicalness of the game. And the goalie that was there was a senior. And I remember she was one of the best goalies I've ever seen play to this day. And I remember saying to her, like, I know you're really good, but why can I score on you? Like, what's going on? She was phenomenal. So that was a whole, a big jump to go from high school to that college level. But now I would say it's even more so.
So did any of your sisters follow you to Georgetown? I'm just wondering if you had any sisters on the team when you were there.
Yeah. So the next sister, who was 2 grades below me, came to Georgetown also. We both played attack, so we were able to play together. By my senior year, her sophomore year, we did make it to the national championship. We ended up losing in overtime to Maryland out on Hopkins Homewood Field, just a short distance away from where we grew up. So it was not the storybook ending, but it was still amazing and like just such a great feeling to do that with my sister, and then to play at Baltimore, even if it ended up being a loss. And then I had another sister that went to Georgetown, but she didn't play with us. She was the one right below us.
Okay.
So oldest 3 girls went there.
So Sheehan, you were just talking about, as you were going through the recruiting process, you getting a lot of good advice, and you were talking about your coach. Were there others that helped you?
I would definitely say my parents. They were hugely instrumental, and you never know, looking back as like a 17-year-old, how much they were, making it seem like it was definitely my choice, but what they were weighing in, being, Georgetown happened to be a lot more convenient for them to drive than some of the other schools. So I think they agreed with the whole process. And they very supportive of the decision. So I think weighing in with them, I had an uncle that played college sports, and he said, it ended up, my decision came down between UVA and Georgetown. And he said, spend one day just saying that you're going to go to UVA. And how do you feel? How do you feel when you go to bed that night, when you wake up, when you tell your sister that you're going there, and then do the same thing the next day for Georgetown. And that that like it felt good. And then just, we are a very faith driven family, just to pray, to ask for guidance, to make a decision clear, which is something that is still useful for me to this day. It's not going to give you complete clarity. It does help me like feel at ease. And so I felt you always were going to worry, did you make the right decision?
Right.
And it was a really hard decision because there were so many great options, but there was just something about the feel that you say, like you being with the team. Although I felt that at every school also, you feel like you could have landed, a lot of those places and still had a great experience.
How, when your younger siblings came along, how did your parents deal with letting each kid choose? Because a lot of them went to different schools. There was never like they all went to Hopkins or they all went to Georgetown. Was it kind of like each individual kid was going to do their own thing?
Yeah, I think everyone had just like an interesting journey, and whether that was where you thought you were going to maybe see playtime or could make an impact, how wanted you felt like, just different schools have different needs just in terms of, could you be a big difference maker maybe on a program that really wants you? So for me at Georgetown, that was, they really wanted me, which I felt, or that's how I felt. Where some of the other schools, they didn't necessarily need me. They were going to win, with or without. So I think the same thing played into their roles. And then just making that list of pros and cons, I feel like that was a hugely helpful, just with like the matrix of whether it's distance and, there's nothing guaranteed. So the coach can tell you anything you want to hear that you're going to play and start. And you have to know that there's no guarantee with that, but is it the right fit if that coach leaves? Financial, like the whole piece of the puzzle. Sure. Distance, there were some schools, I flew out to Vanderbilt to look there. If I'd gone there at the time, my parents probably would not have been able to see many of my games just with that travel. So like there was a kind of a large matrix, and just trying to figure out like which one had the most points when you tallied all those up at the end. I think each kid kind of felt that through their own journey. I definitely think the two brothers that went to Hopkins, that was probably having my brother Wells there when Shaq decided to go there. I think that was a big important mark for him to make that decision.
But don't you think by that time your parents are like, please just go around this, just go down the block. We're just tired. Okay. I don't want to be on the Jersey Turnpike anymore. I don't want to be on 95. Just go down University. That's all we want, please.
What was the most kids ever at once in college?
So Wells and my sister Covey are the same grade, but not twins. So They were in college, and Shaq was there as well. So I think it was 3. There possibly Steele might have overlapped, but I don't think he did. I think it just was 3 at one time.
Okay. So I'm tired of talking about all your siblings because I see way too many of them way too often. So and you're just way too humble to talk about yourself. So I'm going to have to pull it out of you. So Sheehan, when did you know, or how did you know that lacrosse was something special, that you were going to be something special in lacrosse? And was there a game, a moment where you're like, oh, I'm a big part of this team, and this is something I really want to, sink my teeth into?
I think if like you'd ask my parents, they will still tell a story of where like we had weird cuts at in high school when I was a freshman. Like there was never like a list posted, but you were given the jersey. But I remember like after the first game and I came home and said something like, well, I'm not really sure if I'm on the team. And they were like, what are you talking about? Like you're on the team. But I never felt that. There was always a worry, like a level of doubt that I had. So even like in college, it was like, my thought was, you've got to, try out every year. Like you don't have to be on the team. So I never felt like secure, but I guess I knew didn't come like naturally. Like I was not the star that you saw at 6 years old that people thought that you were going to be very good. But I would say middle school, I had talent, and I knew that it was like a sport that I wanted to play and like make the A team type thing. And I guess throughout high school, I think sophomore year was a big jump from like freshman year to sophomore year. And then, but I always had like kind of the worry of like, I wanted to be the best I could be. And like, that was a driving factor, thinking that, I hadn't reached the potential. So like, just kind of like a drive to want to be better.
Right. And that's what a great motivator that is, right? I mean, that's just induced, self-inflicted, that you're just like, you know what, I might have started last year. Doesn't mean I'm starting this year. So I got to keep grinding, got to keep getting better, faster, stronger. And I see that in you even today. I mean, you're like, I can just see it with you with everything else that you do. So it's pretty, I love that that's part of that's in your makeup. That's your DNA. Go ahead. Here we go.
Love
That's
four
times you cut me off.
Who's best at 6 is not always the best one down the road. Because I think especially for girls lacrosse, with the sticks being different than boys lacrosse, you get people who show up, and there have been kids playing since they were 5, and maybe they don't start playing until they're 8 or 9, and you can tell they're good athletes, but it's intimidating to go out there your first year when other people have been playing for 3 years, or you go out there and you aren't the best on the team, but who's the best at 6 or 10 is not necessarily who's the best at 17, 18, or 22. And I think we need to hammer that home for more kids.
Totally. And just the burnout factor. I mean, we've seen just, kids, like if people were recruiting back how they used to in 8th grade, we like often think about, wow, like that, that kid would have been going to one of the best schools in the nation, and how that didn't necessarily pan out over the next couple of years, just how things change. And that could be whether it's how somebody grows or just the like level of interest. Athleticism when you're younger can take you really far. And then as you get older, it's more of the drive and what you put in, right, and that combination.
You went to Georgetown. You were a pretty good lacrosse player, only being a 4-time All-American, set all sorts of records, got to play with your sister. Your lacrosse comes to an end. How hard was that? Were you able to think, hey, I want this to continue, and how would that continue?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I
Suck
like a lot
Ty.
of athletes, and I feel like I needed something like the thought of, and our coach would often say, the reason she became a coach was because she couldn't do a desk job. That, like when that transition from athlete to the working world was really hard for her. And I didn't want to get into coaching. That wasn't something that I was looking to pursue, but I realized I needed to train for something. So I started training for a marathon and ended up running a couple marathons after I graduated college. And I thought that was a great way to like still have that athlete identity, because I thought of myself, if you asked to describe myself, one of the first words would probably be like a lacrosse player. Like that was my like whole world. So that was really hard to not have a team and, structure from the coaches and all the different strength training and all that kind of stuff. So I loved training for a marathon. I thought that was great. And then I ran with a running group. So that felt like a little bit of a team.
But sorry to cut you off. See, I apologize, Lisa Ty. But you also got to do a lot of those with somebody that you grew up with in your father.
Yes.
I always thought that was special.
That was amazing, and actually something that gets me emotional. Just like those times, it was so many hours that we would run together. He liked to run, but he would run for 30 minutes as fast as he could. So for me to convince him to do a marathon, it took. And he's like the strongest person I know in terms of mental toughness. And watching him fight through the marathon, which we have such a respect for anyone who does it, because all shapes and sizes, and just fighting through that. So that was amazing. The bond that we had from doing that. So I will forever treasure. And I hope one day one of my kids, I haven't run a marathon in a long time, but I hope that somebody asks me, because it was something I really cherished running with him, even though I think we both wanted to kill each other. Like there was times where he didn't want me talking. I didn't want him talking. I think when I tried to cheer him on, that was like reverse roles where he did not enjoy that, but it was a great experience. And we did have for lacrosse, I was still able to play. There was like a summer league that was like pretty intense because a lot of the college players still played in it, and the U.S. team. But that memory came up today. I was able to play with the U.S. team for a little bit, but I missed my college graduation for a tryout for the U.S. team. We just were driving by a college today, and the kids were asking me, how was your graduation? I said, well, I actually didn't walk. I tried out for a team that I didn't make. So I ended up getting cut from the World Cup training team my graduation weekend. And that ended up, it hurt at the time just to finish off your college career and not make that. But it was also, I played for a little bit. I was on the training roster, played for a couple more years. It was, kind of a lower key commitment. And then fully hung it up a few years after college. It just was, I didn't really want to have fun doing it in terms of going to Yale, to Vail, or to Ocean City. Had never been an interest to me. It's either I want to play it for real, or I would rather just, play ping pong or something not lacrosse for fun.
So did you ever consider coaching at that level?
No, not really.
Level, high school level, or college?
No. And even with the kids, with the broadcasting, it's very difficult to actually coach and commit to coach. So I will always help out if someone needs something, but I never had an interest really to being a coach. One, knowing I did coach my sister, I shouldn't say, when she was in 5th grade, and I was working, and she had a little club team. It was not as intense as it was now. The parents were great. But I knew that it could, play time, and that would cause me the most concern, was making sure everyone got in for, a certain amount of minutes. And if somebody got hurt, then it was messed up the whole spreadsheet. So I didn't and I didn't have a bad experience with that, but that aspect of coaching with really the parents and the playtime and stuff was never much of an interest. I like to be a cheerleader. I always said I would be a great assistant coach, but I don't want to be a head coach and the plays. And I kind of was one of those, I love the fast break, the transition, not slowing it down, which is not a great way to run a team.
I've sat next to Sheehan at a lot of different sporting events with our kids. And I'll tell you, for being the athlete that you and your husband, what's your husband's name again? Ryan? Ryan, that's right. Ryan, that little fella. Anyhow, being two great athletes, Ryan played football at BC, played lacrosse and stuff at Loyola High School, but neither one of you are coaches from the sideline, which I've always thought was impressive because, you see things differently than other people do, but you're not out there barking and yelling. You're just sitting back and you're always about the encouragement, not just of your kids, but of all the kids. I couldn't do it, but it's
we actually
pretty impressive.
Even feel bad because we don't even like to cheer for our own kids. Like, I don't like saying my kids' names out there, even if it's something good. So like, I would rather cheer for the other kid. Like if they score, it's like, I'll cheer for the person who assists. And I would say we are pretty quiet. I do sometimes get a little heated about the officials calling, especially in the women's game. I want it to be safe. And if I see a missed call, that's like kind of, I feel like the surrounding parents would be like, if Sheehan, started yelling, it would probably be about a call, which, but for the most part, they're not really listening to you. And the few words we say, and I feel like they just kind of check out to what, what we're saying if we're trying to coach from the sideline. So it's better not to.
Absolutely. Well, Ty's been a coach. Ty, what would you be doing? You're a yeller.
No, actually, when I coached girls lacrosse, everybody thought I was very laid back, but they were young. They were probably 5 years old up till 7th grade. So this was before the club thing, except I kind of always carried one goalie because I kind of wanted that goalie to play the whole game. But if they were sick or were on vacation or something, I always made my daughters the backup goalie. So when my daughters who didn't play goalie, when they went in the goal, that's where I went crazy. And every best player on the team played defense that day. And I'm yelling out like I'm like, Vince Lombardi or something, trying to coach the defense. But other than that, and Matt, I will tell you, my son's last year of high school, a mom came up to me and said, "You are so laid back at the games. Is this because you're a surgeon and you don't put it in perspective?" And I said, "No, I am psycho on the inside. I just stand away, and I would stand with my cousin and my uncle when they would come watch. And I'm just as crazy as all the other dads. I just don't want anybody to know it."
That's a pretty good way to go.
Did you have a hard time with the parents though? Like, did you ever get into somebody upset with playtime or what decision you made?
I coached the age where pretty much everybody played the same. So what I found was my huge strategy was designing my lineup so we would be the strongest lineup for the day, but also have everybody play equally. So, and I felt like that was a huge skill, because you're trying to decide, do you have your best lineup in the first quarter or the fourth quarter? Do you have your best defense? Do you have your lesser player, depending on the strategy of the game, trying to make sure everybody got in? And I actually enjoyed it. And we have a guy that we're going to interview who's a surgeon in a couple, probably next month. And I remember one time in between surgeries, we were about to do a distal radius fracture. And he goes, "What are you thinking about? You need to let me know. What are you thinking about?" Because he thought I was thinking about the plan for the distal radius fracture, which I'd done 1,000 times. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out my second midfield for the game tonight.
I don't know if you noticed, but Ty's a doctor. I don't know if you dropped that in there. Did you drop that in?
I thought you told her that.
No.
You did. I knew that.
She mentioned about the ACL thing. I thought you hinted at it.
No.
I do have a question about the being a mom on the sideline, though. Do you ever, you let the coach, you try not to yell. Do you ever, that weekend after a game say, "Hey, have you ever considered this move?" Where you take them to the backyard and say, "This thing could work," or anything like that?
You're talking about the coach or one of her kids?
Your kids.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't talk to the coaches. I know you don't talk
to the coaches. Do you ever give the kids some insight when it's the appropriate time?
Yes. And sometimes they use it and sometimes they don't. But it is, I feel like at some point, especially if it's attacking from a different point on the field, or even my son plays defense. So it's, kind of different tips, but just kind of utilizing what I see from what the offensive player is trying to do to him. But there'll be times we wanted a daughter to start attacking more from behind, and just there was excuse after excuse of why that couldn't happen. And then she goes one game and scores, and it's like, we told you. And it was kind of the light bulb went off, so I do feel I think my biggest thing that I have to work on is beating a dead horse. So I feel like if there is a comment that we want to give, I seem to explain it in like 16 different ways, where I have my husband Ryan chirping in the background, like, they got it. Like, you need to stop. Like, now they don't ever want to speak to you again about any of this. So like,
So
the
did you ever
fine
have
line
to
between
pull
making
out?
it clear.
Did you ever have to pull out your tapes to make yourself credible? There's a story behind this.
I do not know.
When Joe Flacco was playing for the Jets and they were doing horrible, his son was like playing baseball, and Joe Flacco was trying to tell his son that he had to get his hips into his swing. And his son was like, "What do you know? Your team's trash." And Joe Flacco in the interview is like, "So there I am Googling, 2012 Ravens to show my 9-year-old son that I know what I'm talking about."
That's amazing.
No respect.
No footage. So like, they like literally don't believe. I feel like somebody came up with some clip that they saw, and I feel like they do, whether they at least put on a good act that they kind of respect what I have to say, but they will fight. And then oftentimes they'll have it, echoed by somebody else. If somebody's there watching, like my dad is a mind that they all respect. So if he's at a game, I could, if it comes from his mouth, he beats a horse worse than I do, though. So you have to be careful with what you ask him and when, because he will not let that die. Can you even say beat a horse anymore? Am I going to get in trouble for saying that?
No, I think that's okay.
Yeah. Ty's wife's going to be a little upset, but that's
we
okay.
did an episode on horse riding already.
Okay.
So Sheehan, talk about then no coaching, no professional leagues like there are now. How do you make the jump to the booth? Were you a journalism major? Was that something you just wanted to do, or how'd that happen?
It was so lucky. And I do feel badly when young girls come up to me at school and they're in the broadcasting school and they're doing these internships and they ask how I got into the business. And it is like by pure luck. I got a phone call. I was working in investment banking at Deutsche Bank as an analyst, and a phone call from the local news station who used to do like a couple Hopkins games a year. And they said, would you like to be an analyst? I didn't even know what that meant when they first called. Like, had no idea. I thought they wanted, I think I ended up like faxing, and I did fax like a diagram of the field and like dimension. I just thought they didn't understand the game. So I went on air and I loved it. And I luckily was kind of coached all along the way to figure out they don't really need to know field dimensions. They want to, hear about explaining the game. And
wait, is this a men's game or a women's game?
This was a women's game.
Okay.
And this was the year I graduated. So
okay.
I was able to do it and it was easy. And then from there, just the like streaming of women's lacrosse and lacrosse in general, like started taking off. So there was a network called CSTV, which eventually was bought by CBS down the road. And they started doing college lacrosse. And I think through that, actually Keith Mills, a local broadcaster here who has become a friend over the years, he passed my name along. I think that's how I got into Channel 2, from just like him covering high school sports. And then that, just was kind of like people looking for coverage. And I just kept being on a list. So it snowballed from there. And one of the people working on lacrosse said, hey, like, do you like football? Why don't you try doing sideline reporting? So I did that for lacrosse and football. And so I've been beyond lucky that it just has continued. I'm now, I think, like 24 years been doing this. And we'll probably do over like 30 to 40 games this year. So it went from, doing like 2 games my first year to something that I can do. I say in my spare time, it's like my job, but it controls when you're on, but I do have a lot of time to be a mom at home and then do this in addition, which has been like really great blessing. And I will take it as long as it comes, because it can change quickly. Like,
Sure.
You never know how long it's going to last.
Now, you already had the mindset and the skill set not to coach from the sidelines of your kids. How hard is it not to coach from the booth? You sit up in the booth and you have to kind of hold back and you're like, ooh, I wouldn't have done that. Is that a tough thing to do?
It's interesting because I feel like it's a different perspective. So in the booth, it's I see the game differently than if I'm a fan or in the booth, because people ask me questions all the time, like as we're sitting on the sideline, and it's like, I'm like, I have one perspective when I'm sitting on the sideline, not really like looking to critique the other team necessarily, or not looking to find the good in that play. So when you're in the booth, it really is and it depends on the game. You want to give your opinion, and I don't want to be positive the entire game. Like, you need to say when it's a bad play or, a bad shot. But there's times, sometimes you might want to, if it's a bad shot, maybe you want to give credit to the defense if that's warranted. So you can spin it as a positive for one side without taking away for the other. But sometimes that's not necessarily the case. So I think I don't have a hard time. I'm never really like nervous that I'm going to say something wrong or bad. I mean, in this crazy day and age. I
Right.
do sometimes worry that maybe something I said would be taken out of context or something like that.
Oh yeah, because Shane, you curse like a sailor. You are always flying off the handle. I mean, yeah, I'm surprised you haven't been canceled yet, but
So
thank God
that,
for the
but
delay button.
the delay, yes. But it's been like I've worked with so many great people along the way that I was always told just kind of be yourself. So I don't try to really mimic anyone else. It just is kind
It's
of what I
authentic that
see
way.
and why. And
Yep.
that's like I think the hardest part is really you never know. You're kind of taught for especially for a sport like lacrosse. We're often told you need to talk to the viewer that's never seen the game, that's
Right.
just casually turning on the channel, to somebody that's been playing the game their entire life and watching their daughter out there. So like not offend the real fan, but educate. And that's hard. And you don't know if they tuned in, if they're watching from minute one or if they just tuned in the last 15 minutes. So like how often do you repeat a story or tell,
Right.
whatever that player's been dealing with. So that's been like an interesting dynamic, and explain the rules. I mean, women's lacrosse rules are difficult. They change a lot. So that's like hard to, and a lot of times I don't know what the rule is. And I've never felt bad saying, I'm not sure what that call was, because that's just a real case. Sometimes the coaches don't know either.
Right.
There's not always an explanation.
How much studying is required to know the players and be able to do it so fast? Because the ball moves so quick, and you're calling out their names, not just their numbers. How much prep work does that require?
It's a lot. And I think in the very beginning, I used to try to do like kind of all of it. And I've realized, there's two roles, the play-by-play person, my partner, and like their real job is to know the numbers and names. And while I obviously need to know the numbers and names as well, that's like what I don't memorize every single number. So if you ask me, the roster, I don't necessarily have that. A lot of times it's by sight. I could, see who everybody is, but I feel like the play-by-play people, it's like more like flashcards for them. For me, it's a lot of the, luckily with just the way the games are streamed, you can watch so many games. So like back in the day, you had to kind of look at a box score and try to figure out who was dominant in that game. And you might think the star player was the person who had 5 goals, but in reality, it was like, that girl got face guarded and didn't score, but she's the best player on the field. But now being able to watch the film, that's amazing. So I'm gearing up for the national championship, and I will, can watch a lot of the games throughout the season, which is hugely helpful. And then even the media has picked up. I mean, it's been a great time for lacrosse in particular, or really all sports, that you can find, human interest stories online. Right. And so I feel like it does require a lot of work. Like you don't just show up and, call the game. It's more like knowing the landscape of the whole sport. So even though we're only be covering 4 teams, when you cover the national championship, you want to know the, big storylines. Who didn't make it there that weekend? How did the season go from the very beginning? So it takes a while, but I feel like it's helpful that I think when you cover this, like the same teams, and you just start from the very beginning and don't pick it up. If you were only working in May, you shouldn't just start your work in May. It's helpful to know like that in February with the whole process.
So I got one more question related to that, Matt. So you were talking about talking to people who know the game versus people who don't know the game. Do you have any knowledge, data on women's lacrosse and men's lacrosse versus how many of the people viewing in it's because either they play or their kids play, so they fall in love with the game, versus the person who's purely just a fan, like really have had no connection? Like, so plenty of people watch football who have never actually strapped on a helmet, and plenty of people watch ice hockey who don't know how to skate. Do you think lacrosse is starting to make that jump where somebody whose kids don't play, or they've never seen it in college, do you think they're getting that type of fan yet?
I think they're definitely trying to, and it's on the way. And everyone realizes that we have a huge moment in the sport. So the ESPN covering the national championship weekend, both the men and the women together. So I think there's a big opportunity, and even with the way that the times are structured for airing, that you're hoping to get the viewer that's watching the event beforehand to stay with. And I think social media is huge with all the replays, trying to get on SportsCenter, the schools, I think individually with like their just, the accounts that they try to tie together. So like, UNC and tying in Bill Belichick and like all those different ties, trying to get those new fans. I would still say, from what we're told, and I don't have the data, that it still is, kind of a sport that has a fan base that's kind of devoted, but they're trying to get that sports fan and hope that it turns into what, football is today eventually.
Yeah. It's
So
amazing. My
yep.
my wife grew up in Dallas and when we first started going out, her high school was ranked number 500th in the country, and a Maryland school was ranked number 1. And my brother-in-law was like, "We're coming to get you." And by the time we got married, my high school was ranked number 1 and her high school was 250. By the time I had kids, her high school was 150 and my high school was 15. 3 years ago, my high school was 47, her high school was 51, and they played each other in the summer. And you walk around her high school, it's like Ruxton now. I mean, it's like there's a goal in every backyard. It's amazing how just rapidly it happened and how quickly it's happening. See, Matt, some of my interruptions are good.
Some of them. That was all right. That was your first good one. Sheehan, speaking about your weekend coming up, who do you like, or what do you see? Who is going to be in the final game, do you think?
I think it'll come down to UNC and Boston College, which we've been saying this entire season. They have this, if they meet, they won't meet in the semifinals. They'll have to win and advance. But if they meet, it'll be the third time this season. And UNC has won the last 2 meetings. They've been super close games back and forth. So I know you guys know Acacia. I think she and her coaching staff have done a great job. They have been fixtures at championship weekend.
Yep.
And I know that they're going to, the tweaks that they're going to make. I can't wait to see if they do happen to advance. And UNC, though, they are only undefeated team in the nation. They are so strong. We saw in their last game against UNC or against BC, they haven't really been necessarily challenged by many other teams. They've really been able to handle their opponents, but they have so much depth, and that just sets them apart. They've got 2 sisters, Chloe and Ashley Humphrey, that work together so well and really fun to watch. So if they meet, that'll be a great matchup. But Florida and Northwestern are also vying to be in that title game. And, you never know. Florida was in the national or the semifinals last year. They're back for Final Four weekend and, riding kind of an emotional high. And Northwestern is a team that's won the national championship 2 years ago. Super talented. They, match up very well with Boston College and UNC. So it should be I hope it's a great weekend of games with close ones. But my gut would be we'll see the number 1 and number 2 seed in UNC and BC again.
That would be awesome. That would just be great. Great theater all the way around, and definitely be tuning in to watch that. And I also love that the way the NCAA figured out to put everybody together and then get everybody hyped up for all the games. So it's great to see how that's evolving as well.
I got a comment and then I got a story. How in the last, since you played to now at the very elite level, so those Final Four teams, how has the game changed the most?
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, comparing to when I played, it is a different game. I am so glad that I have followed it all this time, because I don't think you wouldn't recognize it. So you have just from the sticks, if I picked up my stick in the basement, that is dramatically different. The head not as offset, the stringing of the sticks, the pocket, there is so much more of a pocket. So that allows you to shoot faster and handle the ball. But the physical nature, it's gotten a lot, way more physical than how it was when I played. And then the rules. I mean, we had a restraining line, but we did not have boundaries, which that makes it sound ridiculous if you haven't been around women's lacrosse. But if you stepped out of the sideline, you weren't necessarily called out of bounds. They just brought you back in and you kept on playing. So it's been wildly different. The shot clock wasn't there, which I'm so glad to see that rule change in the last years. We've had it for a while, but it's been great. But I remember, games where teams would hold the ball for 7 minutes, and by holding the ball, they would just stand with the ball on their stick, trying to play keep away. And I'm glad that rule went away. It's changed so much, but I think the energy and the beauty of the game is still there, which I so appreciate, but it doesn't look really at all the same from when I was playing.
So, and then my story is, you're probably not aware of this with Matt, but Matt has some lacrosse announcing history. So in our neighborhood, every summer we've had a game. This is the 25th year, and it's basically been the married men versus the single men, the married women versus the single women. It has evolved as some of the great players have gotten older, that it's really out of college people versus in college and younger people. And Matt, for 2 years with my cousin Carlos, who's 21, have been announcing the game, and they do a great job. The hard thing is just with the helmets on, it's hard to see who's who. but Matt is always at the edge of getting canceled, and he spends most of the time making fun of the players. And I feel like he obviously has the hair for the job, and he's got the voice for the job, and he's quick-witted. He's a great announcer, but he just pushes the envelope, and I feel like the big networks will shy away from him. Do you have any advice as an announcer that Matt, or if Matt doesn't listen, at least Carlos, who will listen to the episode, who really does have a future, could
Well, I hope you have a good HR lawyer or somebody that can have your back, or you really have that on tape delay. It does not surprise me that he is very quick-witted on the call. So I think you could have a future there. You'd be very entertaining to listen to.
So the person who takes the brunt of most of his jokes when I'm playing is me, and I'm not going to sue him. So I feel like that's fine. Yeah. But when I retire, somebody else is going to take the hits, and that guy might not be as nice as me.
You know what? Then I'll have to retire because I'll see that coming.
Okay.
And we all know you'll never retire and you'll never pass the ball. So those things are pretty much automatics. Oh my God. Ty, do you have any off the wall questions that you would like to ask Sheehan? I know you do.
So if you were going to go out to dinner, this could be a dinner question or a golf question with four people who are living, dead, fictional, anybody, who would it be?
Well, somebody asked me that recently, and this is kind of like a recency bias, but I love Eric Church, the country music singer, and we just got tickets to his show, and somebody told me that they live next to him at one of their vacation houses, and I was like, I would love to meet him. This will never happen. So I would pick my husband and then Eric Church and his wife, who I've heard is lovely. So that's who I would like to be. Ooh, nice. And hopefully he would sing. Hopefully it would turn into a concert.
So you could have Buddha and Jesus. And...
Oh gosh. Well, I wasn't going that deep. I wasn't going that deep in it.
No, she's done it. It's the Church family. It's the Church family. Okay. And she hopes that Eric Church will serenade her at dinner. Okay.
I was trying to come up with a big lacrosse name, but I was blanking.
Yeah. So if you were going to have this big dinner, would it be, and you're out with Eric Church, I'm guessing there'd be a lot of sausage pizza involved in that as well.
Well, I sometimes I like sausage pizza. I think a crowd pleaser.
Yes. I know a lot of people like it when you have sausage pizza. Oh my God. So Sheehan, what gets you hyped up before a game to play, or do you have to get hyped up? Do you listen to music before you get in the booth? What gets you going?
I do like some music. And besides Eric Church, I do like Pink. I don't feel like I necessarily need to have energy. Like the people I work with, we often joke that rarely are we told you guys need to be alive or, so bringing the energy is not that hard. But we did have a day where we did 4 games in one day. So we started the broadcast at 11, but we had gotten to the field at 9 a.m. And then we didn't leave the field till 10:30 p.m. So it was really long. And I did have a Celsius, which is not a usually drink that I choose to drink. And I felt actually fine. I did have a hard time going to bed that night. I'm sure Dr. Ty, that's probably not healthy for me to have. So it's just been on occasion, but usually maybe a little bit of extra. I have my morning coffee always, but maybe a little bit of caffeine. But don't always go the Celsius route.
I love that you're you're worried that Ty's going to be offended. I love that. It was okay. Oh my God. Sheehan, thank you so much. Ty, you want to interrupt me or Sheehan or anything? Are you good?
No, I want to know, when you're not doing all these sports and announcing, what is your leisure activity that is not athletic related?
Not athletic. I like to watch a lot of Bravo, The Real Housewives, which I don't think adds to strengthening my brain at all, but it is a guilty pleasure.
That's what it's there for.
I have a lot on my DVR, so in downtime I will watch it. My husband doesn't enjoy watching it with me, so I have to find those windows or when I eat lunch. And I still do a lot of help on the PTA. So was running a little pizza party today. So I feel if I'm not working out, it's either watching TV or helping at school.
So Sheehan, as you know, as we are the fastest growing podcast in Anne Arundel County and Baltimore City, we also have an office in Dallas, and you should reach out to that office because one of our star employees there actually babysat for one of the Real Housewives of Dallas this year. And you'll have to get, yeah. So
I thought you were going to say Eric Church though for a second, that they were
no.
dinner.
Yeah, if that was true, she'd probably still be down there. Yeah, so she'll have to fill you in on that.
Can I end with a final question?
Yes, Ty.
So we do need to work out this
Really
communication.
do.
So if
wait, Ty, Sheehan, how do you guys do it? Seriously, in the booth.
Yeah. So
Yeah, like
at
how do you
home
not interrupt
sometimes
each? Like I'm going to keep interrupting you. So
at home, so we do some games from at home, the
Right.
broadcast, and we're basically like how we're talking right now is how
Right.
where I'm talking with my partner, and then I'm able to watch on a screen the game. And it is natural to interrupt. So I would say you have to give Ty a little bit of grace. So like that's going to happen no matter what. But we do seem to do like know the cadence of other people, and one person has to kind of always just like be the default stop talking, because like when you think like you get interrupted and then you somebody keeps trying to talk and then you interrupt each other even more. So like somebody's just got to be like the automatic person that's kind of just gonna swallow their words and go. But if they can't see you, you could always like kind of do the raising your hand, like that you are like wanting to talk, or like something like that. So sometimes on those games from home, we have to make little hand gestures, but there inevitably there'll be some step-ons.
Ty, it's your turn.
So if you're mentoring a young person, what inspirational book or movie or song would you give them?
Wow.
She says the Bible now because you made her feel bad about the churches.
Inspirational book or song.
Or movie. You don't have to say Rocky if Matt gave you prep work.
I know. We just watched an Osama bin Laden documentary. It was very interesting, but not motivating.
That was good.
I think like something like Miracle or something that like is
that's a go-to. Yeah.
That's
movie.
A great one.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's awesome. Sheehan
or Mighty Ducks is a close second, maybe.
Yeah.
Sheehan, we gotta let Ty go because Ty has a big surgery tomorrow. Probably the biggest one of his career.
So although it's a minor surgery, there is no minor surgery when it's on you. So
that is true.
Thank you.
That is a great quote.
Yeah.
What surgery is it?
Matt is having a small wrist surgery. I'm thinking about doing it right-handed though, because he's a VIP. I might use my right hand on him.
I
think we should get it on YouTube. What's that?
Is this going to affect you in yoga?
I think for a couple days. That's what the doctor tells me.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
So I'll be fine. I can't even work out tomorrow morning with you. So anyhow, all right, Sheehan, good luck in Foxborough. I know you'll kill it as you always do. I enjoy listening to you because I feel like I learn something about the game every time, because I don't follow it as closely as you and Ty do, but I always watch. And you are great about. I think you bridge it for the guy that knows it and the people that don't know it. I think you are a great blend of both. So I really enjoy watching you. And I really appreciate you doing this. And Ty, you want to cut anybody off, or you have anything else to say?
I just want to say, if any of your announcing co-hosts ever go down, I think Matt's your guy. You just sign all the waivers before he gets on the air. But I think he has
2-minute delay.
He certainly has not put you on the list.
Thank you. That'd be great. Thanks so much. Good luck this weekend, and we'll talk soon.